Those of you that are doing degree, it's 4,000 words. No, sorry, the degree, master's degree level. So 2,000 words for degree, 4,000 words for master's level. You're required to critically reflect and evaluate your performance as a mentor in supporting workplace learning and assessment. So it's all about the standards for supporting learning that are relevant to your professional body, and I'm just going to show you in a minute in the handbook that you've received the standards you use. So for the NMC, it's supporting learning and assessment in practice, and for the HCPC, so for anybody who's an allied health professional. Now, I believe that you're all nurses. Please tell me if that's not correct, because that saves me talking about two lots of standards. So unless anybody's going to stick their hand up or type in or anything like that, then that's fine. Right, so I'm just going to talk about nursing. So Nursing Midwifery Council. So the other thing that we require is it to reflect contemporary literature. Now in your handbook and also on the website, and I'll show you on the website in a moment, we have a lot of references to the literature support. But since we look at this, there is a lot of literature that's always written all the time. And if you've done any kind of literature search already, you'll find there's loads and loads and loads about mentorship, and there's stuff coming out all the time. We've got quite a lot of key things for you, but you know, just to have a look at what's sort of up and coming and around. So the word count. So essentially, we like you to stick as close as you possibly can to the word count. There is no plus or minus. Okay, if you're going to use 10 or 20 words to complete your sentence, as it were, then that's fine. What we're saying is, if you're working significantly under the word count, and for those of you that are going to do 2,000 words, that's probably not so much a problem. For 4,000 words, you might struggle, and if you're struggling, for goodness sake, please drop us an email and say you're struggling. Obviously, your work could be considered as not complete if you're significantly under. So obviously keep a copy for yourself, and you're going to submit electronically a copy. Now, people talk about writing in the first or third person. It is a matter of your choice. It is more fashionable to use first person, so I or together we. The third person is the author did this or the author said that, but it is purely your choice how you want to do that. So this is a link onto the website. We're going to have a look on the website, and I'll show you where there are previous students' assignments for you to have a look at, to give you a guide as to how you would want to present yours. As always, if you're doing any academic study, you need to try to be as structured as you can. Be ruthless and look at the keywords and the key things that you want to write about. I know from my own experience, and probably Donna's exactly the same, is that you'll start doing the lit search, think, well, that looks interesting, start reading it. It's got absolutely nothing to do with mentorship or mentoring, and then you're off on another road, and away you go. Look at the way articles are written, again, as to how to write academically. We have our assessment guidelines for referencing. We use Harvard referencing, and if you're something that you find that you can't get your head around, again, give us a shout. We can have a look at the work that you're writing and see how you do. So if you open this, it is on the website. I'll show you where it is. If you open it, you can go into the links. I'm not going to go into the moment. All you need to do is do this and click the link to help you build your reading skills. Again, about writing, there's some good resources there for you. So I'm going to talk about referencing now. It's important writing academic essay to reference others' work, and this is the reason why. It shows that you are what you're saying is based on established and respected academic body of literature, and it supports the argument. We talk about it in terms of argument, but it supports the points you're making. And obviously, the more references you use, the better. But you know, it's quite tricky. We understand writing an essay when you're working, and it is hard, but we expect to look for, if you're writing on particular topics, and I'll give you some examples of some topics that you might want to consider or that you've started thinking about in a minute. So again, why are we referencing? So it was also about accrediting the people whose work you've read. We have something which is called plagiarism, where it's about copying others' work, and your work will be automatically go through a plagiarism scan, and that really is used now for all our university work submissions to ensure that you're not copying large chunks of somebody's work and making it look as though it's your own. Essentially, there are sort of pitfalls that people fall into, and it's usually due to naivety about how to use work that you're reading into your assignment. But certainly, again, do ask and share what you're doing, and we can give you ideas and signpost you. There is what we call contract plagiarism, which is paying somebody to write your work for you, and there are agencies that will provide a service. You can go online, you could even go and buy a mentorship essay off eBay, and people sell them, and there are professional, well, they call themselves professional, write your essay for you. Our plagiarism detection software does pick this up, and if you're caught paying somebody to write your assignment, then that's considered to be professionally unacceptable as well. So you could get yourself into hot water. Or the other thing is that you've got somebody else's work and you've copied that and submit it as your own. And we have had a case of that. Somebody shared their essay with a colleague, and they literally reproduced it all apart from 2% of their own. So just as a word of warning there. So again, how to reference, in-text citations, again, and have a reference list at the end, so that the reader can look to see the reference you're using. Again, I'll show you where the Harvard's referencing guide is. So this is all about using citations. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the secondary referencing. Secondary referencing means that you would read something in an article and say Joe Blogg said in Smith and Jones. Essentially, at degree and master's level, if you find that somebody's citing someone else, then we would have expected you to at least access the original work and not use secondary referencing. Again, there's a little clip that you can watch about how to reference. The other thing we need to talk about is using quotations, and people have in previous, maybe it's something you might have done is use quotations. Our handbook's saying that they should be used with caution, and essentially what quotations do is illustrate a point you're making. It doesn't tell us that you have understood and interpreted it, and therefore it's really important for you not to quote. We need to know what you make of what's being said, and definitely at both degree level and masters, using quotations is not considered acceptable. So you've got to think about what you've read, you've got to interpret it in your own words and change it so that it shows that you're thinking about what you've read and what you've made of it. And this is about critical analysis. This is what we're expecting. I've talked about plagiarism. There's some stuff there again about it. We do award a 0 and it is investigated, and as I said, if your professional integrity can be called into question, and things can get a bit sticky there. So in reflective writing, so we're asking for a critical reflection. You can use a model, but it's not necessary. You can critically reflect on your mentoring without it, and some people actually find using a model and going through the stages actually hampers them. And if you're writing at degree level, you've only got 2,000 words. So be very careful. Don't discuss models. If you're saying I'm going to use Gibbs model because it's one I prefer, that's all you need to say. One of the biggest pitfalls that people fall into is writing conversationally, descriptively, talking about what they're doing, but not actually reflecting. If you're using a model, the most of the marks are gained from your analysis section. So if you've spent a whole page describing what happened, you're going to lose out quite a bit. Again, I'm asking you to have a look at how the other students work, which I'll show you where that is in a minute. Have a look how they've used description and how they've used analysis within their work. We want to know your interpretation. We've talked about that already, and to link the literature. Although I've said here, don't forget if you're using a model that you need to conclude with recommendations for future practice, actually it's something that you will be judged about. So at the end, we want you to make recommendations for future practice for yourself, your colleagues and the profession as a whole, and that's one of the key things that we look for. So at the end, it's, you know, what you found, what you think should happen in the future, and again, as they see how people have done that in the example essays. So yes, critical reflection and analysis. So looking at the elements, looking at the judgment, looking at the merits, looking at the deficits. You know, what do you see from that? What do you think? And again, the literature to underpin that. Okay, what I'd like you to do is give us a draft of what you're doing. Students either do what's said here, so tell us what area you're looking at, what you're exploring, what standards you're thinking about, and I'll talk about that in a second, and some of the literature you're looking at. We can't look at work up to a week before hand-in date. There's two reasons for that. One is it's judged, you know, we can't, it's so close to the assessment. But the other thing is, if you've done up a dog's dinner, then you've got an awful lot of problems, because a week to correct it is almost not doable. And we looked at your real in the raw stuff, give you guidelines and tell you where you're going, and let you get you onto the right track. Nursing and Midwifery Council have 8 standards for supporting learning and assessing in practice. What we need you to see is the standards reflected in your work. If you don't do that, you're not going to pass. And therefore, there are 8 standards, and if you wrote a little bit of something about each of them, then you're not going to write very much about anything at all. And what we recommend is actually look at 1 or 2 of the standards and write about that. And I'll show you them in a minute, and we can talk about some of the things. So if you don't meet the criteria, you won't pass. I've talked about some important parts of the criteria. You also are required to undertake the online mentor preparation. I'm going to show you where that is, and we need to see your critical reflection with mentoring linked to the standards and using the literature. That's what we're exploring, and that's what we're looking for. So here's a little bit of thing that you might want to revisit. What do you do if you get stuck? Well, most people, or certainly I have, is gone and cleaned out that cupboard under the stairs that you've been ignoring, but it often seems so much better than trying to write an essay. All of us have been there. You can spend half a day or a whole day, and all you produce is half a paragraph, and it is very, very frustrating. You need to walk away from it for some time, have a think, and come back, and maybe do some discussion. Speak to us, contact me with questions, and just give yourself a bit of a break from it. It is hard to do it. It is hard to do it when you're working, and sometimes you may need to just do an hour at a time. I often used to play a CD. When the CD finished, I go and do something like stick the washing in the washing machine, make a cup of tea and come back to it just to clear my head for a few minutes. And that's just for me. I found that a way to work. Donna, I don't know if you've got any tips on how to get past blocks or anything.
Yeah, I think definitely set yourself targets for that time that you have. So if you only have 2 hours to put aside, set yourself targets of what you're going to do for those 2 hours. And if possible, trying to find somewhere quiet to study, which I know is difficult, but maybe you've got teenage children, you can get up early in the morning and do some work early in the morning while they're still in bed. Or maybe if you've got young children, I know it's difficult, but at the end of the evening when they've gone to bed. But just trying to eke out a little bit of time now and then. But just also to think about what you have done as a mentor and the activities that you've done with your students. It's really powerful stuff, and don't forget that. Just really draw from your own experience, and you've got the experience. You're not starting from scratch, so really think about what you can offer and what you can use to support your assignment.
Great, thank you. That's superb. Okay, so you're going to be submitting through Moodle electronically. You should have received the information. If you haven't, please email me or say something in a minute. 17th of June by 4 p.m. Need to submit on time. What I need to then say is if you're having any difficulties, please contact me. Sometimes life pressures or events in your life or even work pressures can get in the way, and what we'd rather do is come up with some solutions, or if you're sick obviously, to help you over that. There are two things you can do. You can go for an extension, a 10-day late submission. There's some form filling in that has to happen, but I'll guide you through that. Or you go for an extension and you would be resubmitting. Your submission date would be in February, which actually buys you quite a lot of time to move on from whatever's causing your pressure. But please speak to me. We'd rather you speak than struggle through things. You know, people get their jobs changed, have to work extra to cover sickness, have events going on in their personal life, and there are ways around it. So I know it's nice to get something done and out of the way, but you know, it's important to let you know that we can do things about it. So what I would say there at that point is, I'm just going to shut that for a second. I'll return to the masters in a second. Is come to the website and talk you through some of the things on the website. On the website, there's a link to the resources, books and articles for the module. Most of these are the ones that are in your handbook. You just need to click in. And there's a whole list. The books are e-books, so you can read the whole thing online, or you can just go into a journal article. Now, Donna did this in the classroom the other day and it worked. But you can just click in and it'll take you in. That's not going to work. It'll take you in, and you can go into the link and it should take you there. I'm having trouble getting back. Let me come back to that again. It's going to be difficult for me. Here we go. Eventually. And there we are. There is the article there, and you can download it and print it or save it on your computer and read it. To be honest with you, there are libraries. There's a library at Plymouth. There's a library in Truro. But actually, you could actually do the course by utilising that reading list. There is a lot there. So please go ahead and also say do look out and do your own search. You can do web searches through the library. Here's our guide to Harvard referencing that I was talking about. This is about assessments. This is how to submit your work. This is an article that's sort of pretty key to nurse education at the moment, Shape of Caring review. And here's some little little bits about developing your reading and thinking skills. You're required to complete this quiz. It's a mandatory quiz, a mentor update quiz. Now, you have to go in and create a password for it because you can return to this as mentors in a year or 2 years' time and undertake another mentor update for your annual updating. That's why it's set up in this way, and there's some instructions there. Here, there's a whole range of topics about mentoring. Again, so do go and have a look about that. But essentially, you're coming into your annual updating, and you'll click on the quiz. Now, with the quiz, I've just been I've got to question 22 last time I was in here, but it'll ask you where you work and your clinical area, and you just type that in, and that gets recorded on our mentor register. You have to get 95% to get a certificate. Once you've done 90%, it'll give you a certificate that you can copy and save or print off. But we need you to submit it with your assignment. So copy, save it, put it in the back on your last page of your assignment. So that's that bit. Now I've got to be mindful that I have flipped out of it. This is the course you're doing. Here's a whole range of resources for you. Again, the assignment guidelines, some little videos again about mentoring, giving feedback, and again just a link into the resources. So there's quite a lot there for you on your site. That was clever of me, wasn't it? Never mind. That's going to take it back in. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff there for you, including a recording of this assignment. So often I think sometimes too much information, etc., the opportunity for you to peruse around the site. If you haven't accessed the site yet, or you're having trouble, please email me. Really need you to do that. Otherwise you're going to be really stuck. If anybody's studying at Masters, and I'm on the Masters site now, again, there's some additional how to write at Masters level, and also our marking guides, so how we mark your work, and that's the same on the other one. What I want to bring you down here to is previous students' work, which I've been talking about. So in both the degree and the Masters previous students' work, there's 2 or 3 examples of previous students' work, essays that have been written, and they're really excellent guides, and please have a look and read them. Obviously they've been scanned through our plagiarism software, which means if you copy them then we'll know. But they're there for you. So now I knew I was going to lose that. Let me get in there at the end. So I'm just going to go back in to where we were. So I'm hoping that's helped. I'm just going to bring the handbook up now to show you again. Here's the link into the texts, and here's a list of articles and books that will be of use depending on the sort of things you're thinking about, writing about. What I'm just moving on to here is our NMC standards that I was talking about earlier. So there are 8 NMC standards, and they're quite broad. So you'll see, maybe you want to talk about working relationships with students. There are some articles about the mentor-student relationship, so there may be something there to look about how you can create a relationship to create learning. Now, quite often they're kind of linked, and facilitating learning and effective working relationships are often the things that people do write about. So it's all about facilitating learning. Just facilitating learning to ensure the student learns, but also for the ultimate aim of assessment. But you might decide that you want to talk about assessment. There's a lot written about assessment. There's a lot in terms of assessment and facilitating learning about giving feedback, which people often choose to explore, about how to give feedback to ensure facilitation of learning. Again, it fits into this too. Now move on down. Evaluating their learning experience is more about on the broader side of things, but again, how you evaluate how somebody has learnt, again, you could explore that. Creating environment for learning, again, is another popular topic area. You know, what is it you do? What is it your team does? How is your environment conducive and creative to learning? Context of practice, you kind of cover that throughout, really. Some people have talked about how you can bring in evidence into supporting students. Now, leadership's something that's, again, people are beginning to focus on. Leadership and role modelling. The Francis report, the Mid-Stafford's inquiry, looked at, highlighted two things for students. One is there was a lack of leadership and role modelling for students, and there was a lack of leadership within the nursing teams. The other one that Francis identified is about there wasn't systems for students to whistleblow or report incidents and staff. But those are the two key things. So people, and there's quite a bit that's been written recently about role modelling and mentoring and leadership in you know, in being a mentor and leading students to develop. So again, I say that's sort of quite quite a choice. So if you remember, I said if you wrote a little bit about something, each of them, then you might not write much about anything. However, they are kind of linked, and what you'll see people write in their essays is whilst you may touch on all of the standards, for the purpose of the assignment I'm going to focus on 2 or 3. They are and that's what we'd like to see at the introduction of your assignment. And then we look to see how you would thread that through and where you pick that up and refer back to the NMC standards. So whilst nurses are looking at the code, and you can bring the code in, essentially we need to see these standards reflected in your work, because the NMC require mentors to demonstrate these standards to be mentors, to be eligible to go on the mentor register, and that's why we have that requirement. So if you're not sure, you're uncertain, again, come back to me. And I can't overemphasize enough, you know, not only do we say this when we see people and teach module, certainly for distance learning people, you drop an email, we'll have a look at what you're doing and talk things over with you. Happy to speak to you on the phone if you want to, emailing me in the first instance. I have a work phone, and so whilst I travel around the southwest, I'm quite responsive to my emails, so I would get back to you. I have to tell you, I am on holiday the week of the 17th of June, so if you do have any queries or questions, if you know, you need to be, as I said, I can't really help you within your last week, so get it all in now. We're almost halfway now, so I'm hoping that you've kind of thought about the things that you want to write about. You kind of started to read and think about what sort of literature you bring in, so I'd be really happy for you to start sending me your ideas and your sort of outlines. You know, as I said, we do appreciate that work gets in the way of writing essays, or do essays get in the way of work? I'm not sure. It could be one or the other. So we've got a little bit of time left. Has anybody got any questions they want to ask? You can either speak to us, or you can type them into the little box. Anything else anybody wanted to know?
Adele, Claire, Bridger.
Yeah.
I don't have access to any of this online, all what you're showing me.
Okay.
I don't get on the page. I can access where it says APEL mentorship course, but when I click onto that page, there's none of this
Okay.
handbook or. So if I could get that, it would be great.
Okay, Claire, I'll email you the, I'll email all of you actually, I'll email you the direct link to the site. What it will ask you to do is, when you click on the link, it will ask you for your password to get in. So, okay,
Thank you.
that's not a problem, I can do that. I'll do that when we finish. Yeah. Anybody got anything else? You've all gone very, very quiet.
Can I say, as obviously as Adele's colleague and teaching on the course, that sending in a draft is really, really useful. Not everybody does, but particularly if you haven't submitted any written work for a while, sending in a draft is really, really useful because you get feedback on whether you're going in the right direction or not, and sometimes it's just enough to get people back on the right track. So please, if you can, send in a draft. And obviously, Adele, when you're on holiday, I can always field any questions that you need me to.
Yeah. In our experience, those people that don't ask us to look at their draft are the people that don't succeed. I think there's only one person who I've looked at their draft work that they went completely off a tangent after I said you're okay, in my experience, but generally, Donna's laughing. I did feel bad, but actually there's only a certain, we can't read the whole thing, that is the thing, and actually when they sent me their draft, it was a draft. But generally speaking, those that do succeed, and again, as I say, our distance learning students have only had one person who hasn't succeeded in the 3 years that we've been doing, well, the 2.5 years that we've been doing this. So people do very, generally quite well, and certainly be keen to right. So I'm just gonna there's some more questions coming in, so I'm just gonna try and work out where that is. Oh, I think that's why it is down here. Okay. Okay, so I'll make sure okay, so I'll make sure that the master stuff is there. Okay, Claire, you're enrolled on the degree, but you might want to do the masters. That's fine. I can swap you across that. Essentially, it's double the amount of work, and the masters, studying at masters, we're expecting in-depth analysis of the literature as well. But if you look at the presentation that I've just gone through, the additional bit for masters, I'll send it to you. It will explain exactly what's expected, and also you can look at the students' work. I can send you that and make a decision, but you kind of need to make your decision fairly soon, because obviously there's a hell of a difference between writing 4,000 words and 2,000 words. But that's fine if you want to have a go. A lot of people do. Most of the people that come on mentorship and do masters, I don't think I've met anybody yet who's already done master study. And a lot of people do it and think, well, I'll do it as a toe in the water. It's not an NMC requirement for you to do mentorship at a master's level, but a lot of people kind of do. And again, generally speaking, people do have a fairly good go at their first attempt. So that's fine. Okay. Any more questions? Otherwise, we'll go and have some tea, and Donna can go home.
Adele.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
The quiz that we have to do, you have to get 95%.
Yeah.
If you don't get 95%, can you just keep going back and doing it?
Yes, of course. And you and quite a few people do. And essentially, it is kind of designed in a way that if you didn't get it right, then you've got to have a think about what it is, and people do. So yes, you keep going till you've got it.
Okay.
Any more for any more? Great. Well, I hope that's been useful. And please come get in contact with me. Send me some stuff to look at, and let's get you on the right track. Okay. Well, we'll say good night and good luck with it. That's obviously the
Thank you.
the big thing. Okay. All right then. I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.